Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. Today, we continue our season previews with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Are they still an elite program? Are they capable of winning the SEC or even a national title in 2025? We will see soon enough. But as always, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on our social medias. Links to those will be in the description below. And without further ado, let's jump into it, starting with the 2024 recap. The Crimson Tide in its first year under Kalen DeBoer go 9-4 with a loss to the Michigan Wolverines in the ReliaQuest Bowl. They notably go 2-4 in non-home games, so clearly a much worse team on the road than they were at home last season. Not the season Crimson Tide fans were probably hoping for, but it's year one under a new regime. You can expect that transitional phase to be a bit rocky, and all things considered, it's not that bad of a season. Statistically, a top 10 defense and a top 25 offense last year, and you make a considerable improvement to that offensive stat this season. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a look at something that won't get easier in 2025, and that is their schedule. The most notable part, in our opinion, is their away slate. Yes, they have Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma all at home, but we know, looking back at last year, this is a team that's going to thrive in their home environment. But on the road, they open up the 2025 season in Tallahassee against Florida State, a team we aren't too high on coming into this season. We think they'll be better, just probably not in the same realm as in Alabama. Then they've got Georgia in Athens, self-explanatory, Missouri on the road, South Carolina in Columbia, and Auburn in the Iron Bowl at Auburn. All very tough environments to play in, but on the bright side, they're going to play who we think will be their two toughest opponents on the season in Georgia and LSU, coming off of bye weeks. We think those two games could potentially make or break their season, could be the difference between a playoff berth or a potential SEC title berth in year two under Kalen DeBoer. But now let's jump into this team's strengths for next season. Alabama's first strength, and arguably the most important aspect of any team, is their play in the trenches. They also portal in some important depth on both sides of the ball in that aspect. On the offense, they return one of the best O-lines in general in the sport this year. They've got multiple multi-year stars returning in Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, and Jaden Roberts. They also add an experienced SEC lineman from Texas A&M in Cam Dewberry, so a very talented, very experienced O-line going into next year. All the four guys we mentioned could go in the NFL draft next year, which is similar to the defensive line. The biggest returning name on that side is LT Overton. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss last year, and a forced fumble. But they also return even more experienced players in Tim Keenan, James Smith, and Jamarian Latham. And with the way that defense is set up in general, they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. They're going to be aggressive, and that is testament to Kane Womack, who came in last season from South Alabama, which leads us to our next strength on this team, the coordinator duo. Kane Womack came in immediately. They have a top 10 defense with the talent they're afforded, but the addition of Ryan Grubb as the team's next offensive coordinator might be the piece to the puzzle that they were missing last year. He was the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks in 2024, but more importantly, he was Kalen DeBoer's hand-picked offensive coordinator from 2019 to 2023 at Fresno State in Washington. And in those 2 seasons at Washington, they finished with top 10 offenses in back-to-back years and a playoff berth and national championship appearance in 2023. He developed guys like Jake Hayner from Fresno State to the league. He developed Michael Penix Jr. to what should be the Falcons' next starting quarterback. And that's going to be very, very important with this quarterback transition. But something that will also help in that transition is our third strength for this team, the receiver room. One of the best starting trios in all of FBS this year. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and Miami transfer Isaiah Horton, who had over 2,200 combined receiving yards and 15 touchdowns last season. And then throw in Josh Cuevas and Brody Dalton, who combined for a modest 400 yards and 5 touchdowns at tight end as backups for their respective teams last year. And they're going to take a lot of pressure off of their starter, whoever it may be, which brings us to Alabama's weaknesses. Now, we wouldn't say this is a weakness as much as it is a question mark, but with the importance to a team a starting quarterback brings, it's hard for us not to include that here and at least talk about it. At this point, it looks like it's going to be Ty Simpson, but it is May. Anything can happen. They also have sophomore transfer Austin Mack and true freshman Keelan Russell as options behind Simpson. I feel like Simpson is the obvious choice here with his arm talent and underrated athleticism out of the pocket, but I'm not Kalen DeBoer, I'm not Ryan Grubb. But as much fault as he was given last year, Jalen Milroe was a quality starter, had a ton of experience, and losing a guy like him is going to hurt a good bit, at least in the short term. And overall, Alabama is still a fairly young team. Going off their projected depth chart for this upcoming season, it looks like they'll have at least 13 players in their 2 deep that are either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or true sophomores, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you have the kind of talent Alabama's going to have. But for obvious reasons, most teams are going to want to rotate guys who have been in the program for multiple years or have on the field game experience, which are typically your redshirt sophomores and beyond. Like I said, not the biggest deal in the world. They're still extremely talented. We want to make that clear, hammer that home. They're still extremely talented, just maybe not as deep as you'd want to be with the schedule they have. And now let's jump into the final grades for this Alabama team, starting with the offense, which we are giving a 91.5, an A-. Very talented overall, but really lacks the depth at the skill positions and O-line that might boost this into an elite grade. And on top of that, the quarterback situation is still an unknown, so we're holding back until we see more out of that room. But as for defense, we're confidently giving that unit a 94 flat, one of the most talented units you'll see going into next season. They also get the benefit of year 2 under Kane Womack, which should make for an amazing unit. As for special teams, haven't gotten to talk a lot about that in this video, but they also have a very, very good unit going into next season. We're giving them a 92 flat. They're going into 2025 with a new kicker, but both of their options have limited experience rather than none. But they also go out and poach arguably the best punter in Division II in Alex Asparov from the Colorado School of Mines, go figure. And side note, more teams should be doing that. There's plenty of kickers and punters at the D2 level who are highly talented that just sit there for a couple years. Myself, as a D2 graduate, I've seen it happen. Plenty of untapped potential at that level, but I digress. Alabama's punt coverage unit also ranked first in the country last season, giving up just 1 yard allowed on average per punt return last year. And moving on to coaching, we're giving this staff an elite grade of 97 flat. Kalen DeBoer, about as good as you can get for a head coach, has already done great work out of high school, great work through the portal. Kane Womack, about as good as it gets at defensive coordinator. Dude's built to be a head coach, but I'm sure they're awarding him well enough to stay at defensive coordinator at Alabama. They had Ryan Grubb, quarterback guru, offensive genius, should make that offense instantly a lot better. He's going to fit like a glove in this system. Hard to find better units out there, but you'll have to stay tuned for that one. As for strength of schedule, the Tide is getting another elite grade here of 96.5, meaning their schedule is capital T tough. Probably the last category in this video that you want to be at an elite level in, but they play in the SEC. They're naturally going to grade out a lot higher, especially with the road schedule they face this year, which brings the Alabama Crimson Tide to a 94.2 for this upcoming season. Not quite an elite grade, but we're going to be stingier than we were last year handing out those elite grades. Still an incredible grade, probably going to be one of the highest we have all off season long. And now let's look at our season predictions for Alabama. I've got Alabama's floor this year pegged at 8-4 overall with a 4-4 conference finish. We think they're pretty safe in their non-con schedule this year, but if our concerns at quarterback or with the youth and depth of this team end up manifesting on the field in a big way, whether it be through injuries, knock on wood, or just inexperience in general, leading to missed opportunities, turnovers, whatever it may be, we could see them dropping multiple conference games this year, especially on those road conference games. But as for their ceiling, we think Alabama is going to be talented enough to beat almost any team on their schedule, a schedule that noticeably lacks a Texas again this year. So there's not more than one team on their schedule that's going to out-talent them this year, but we do have them losing one game this year and most likely to the Mean Machine in red and black in Athens. We have Alabama's ceiling at 11-1, 7-1 in conference play. And as for what we think will happen, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide going 10 10-2, 6-2 in conference. We don't like the road game at Georgia at all this year. We don't like several of the other road games they play this year. We think they'll fare well at home and probably be a better team overall than last season, but the SEC is an unforgiving hellscape of a conference. We think they drop one more of those road games to either Missouri, South Carolina, or Auburn, if not potentially to an LSU at home or a Tennessee at home. But overall, an improvement from last year. I'd say Alabama is comfortably in playoff range with this final record, with potential for an SEC title berth with just a little bit of chaos in that conference. 10-2 is our final prediction. And with that, thank you for watching. As always, if you liked it, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot, and we will see you in the next one.